Who's the best player left in these playoffs?
Guys, if you're not on the Luka Doncic train, it's leaving the station. And this is a guy who you may not think he has the playoff resume, but look in Europe. Look what he did with Slovenian national team. I know this is going to make people roll their eyes. Last summer, he led the Slovenian national team to a win in Lithuania over the Lithuanians to qualify for the Olympics. One of the most impressive wins in international basketball in years. This guy's a killer. And I don't know if his team is going to be able to deliver the way they did yesterday on a regular basis, and I certainly respect the Warriors. How can you not? Who's guarding him? Who's guarding him, guys? Luka Doncic is a force. He's going to be a force for the next decade, and he has arrived now. He is earlier than we thought. Look out. This is about to be Luka Doncic's league.
Wendy, I'm curious, where do you have Jason Tatum on that list? Because I know Stephen Curry, I know Luka Doncic. Now I've seen Jason Tatum bring this team back to the Eastern Conference Finals once again. Where is he on your pecking order of NBA greats?
Well, you're hitting me in a soft spot here because I am a massive believer in Jason Tatum. I have been a huge believer in his future ever since the 2018 Conference Finals when he was a rookie, where he was arguably the Celtics' best player at that point. I spent 3 weeks with him in China in the World Championships. I spent 2 weeks with him in Tokyo. I know his game very well. When he was hoisting contested shots and the Celtics were under 500 at the beginning of the season, I was extremely disappointed in him. I was extremely impressed with him when he was arguably the first or second best player in the whole NBA, certainly one of the best in the East over the last 2 months of the season. I had him 5th on my MVP ballot. I had him on my All-NBA team, and I sat here over the last 2 weeks and watched and covered this series with the Celtics and Milwaukee, and I'm going to tell you, he saved the Celtics season with his 46-point performance in Game 6, one of the all-time great efforts by a Celtic player in a playoff game. That's right. I didn't stutter on that. That's what I said. He is awesome. They are awesome. In my mind, they are probably my favorite to win the title right now, but it's narrow. It's close. So I'm a big believer in Jason Tatum as well. But he's not Luka. With all due respect, he's not Luka.
I agree with you on that one. Wendy, I was to say, I think one of the most understated stories that isn't being told enough right now was only a year ago, man, where Danny Ainge was in Boston. He leaves. Brad Stevens goes to the front office. They hire Ime Udoka. The fact that this organization has been able to pivot so quickly and now have this level of success, what does that say about how you view this organization?
Jay, I think that Brad Stevens' performance in his first year as team president has been absolutely spectacular, and it's underrated. He does an Al Horford trade. That is a brilliant trade. Completely changed the way that their team was made up. You mentioned the hiring of Ime Udoka. Ime Udoka looks like he could potentially be a coaching star. And by the way, rode with them early in the season when Ime was kind of ripping his team night in and night out, and they were really struggling. Then at the trade deadline, where your competency as an executive is tested extremely, he does a Derek White trade. Derek White was a difference-making player in this series, and Daniel Tice, which is a small deal, but when Robert Williams goes out, they have another guy who they can trust to put in there. Brad Stevens' performance has been awesome, and it's one of the big reasons why the Celtics are heading into the conference finals.
Wendy, who wins it all, though? Let me know right now who wins it all early.
Well, I mean, Key, you're going to have trouble getting predictions out of me because I would have predicted that the Suns would have won yesterday. But right now, I'm extremely impressed with the Celtics. The series they just won with the Bucks. What Giannis just threw at Boston, Giannis had one of the greatest all-time series in NBA history. This is a guy who already has a Finals MVP. His statistics in this series against the Celtics were comparable to what Jerry West did in 1969 against the Lakers when he famously won the Finals MVP as the loser in the Finals. And you can say, well, how could you possibly say that about a second-round series? Well, I've covered numerous Finals that haven't been as competitive as the series I just covered, the lopsidedness of Game 7 notwithstanding. And I have, the force that Giannis is playing with, it resembles the force that I've always seen LeBron play with. I've seen LeBron put up incredible series and have to go home. And the Celtics handled it. They handled it and pushed back on it. They are fortunate that Chris Middleton wasn't playing. If Middleton was playing, I believe I'd be talking about the Bucks as championship favorites.
Wendy, what the hell happened to the Suns yesterday? I mean, any basketball expert that could have told you they would have picked Dallas to win, you would probably said, okay, probably not. But yet alone to get blown out that way at home in a Game 7, what is that? What are your thoughts?
Jay, if Luka had gone in and scored 50 points and an all-time potentially great player went in and beat a good team, that's NBA. That's why we watch the playoffs. And by the way, Luka might have scored 50. He scored 35 in 30 minutes. That I would have understood. I could not explain the Suns' performance. I spent a lot of time around them this season. I was there when the Robert Sarver story came out. I was there in mid-season when they played big games. I covered their first-round series against the New Orleans Pelicans. They were one of the most focused teams I've ever covered. They were one of the most clutch teams in NBA history when you look at the numbers. They had some flaws, and certainly the series against New Orleans showed how they struggle with size on the perimeter, and that portended a few things that were going to happen against Dallas. But Chris Paul went 14 of 14 in the closeout game on the road in that series. They have one of the best motivating coaches, arguably one of the best coaches in the league, the coach of the year. Absolutely flabbergasted at the lopsided nature of that game. And, there may have been some things going on internally. Monty Williams touched on it, explaining why he cut DeAndre Ayton's minutes, just said it was an internal decision. Chris Paul may have had a bit of a quad injury. It doesn't explain how you scored 27 points in the first half of a Game 7 on your home court. Not that team. It's one of the more stunning results I've ever seen.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.